Good day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Helenique R. Giroux, clinical psychologist and peak performance trainer, and we are joined today by some incredible guests. This is really an opportunity to get to know people that are extra visionary, but also women of truth, people that are really invested in a high level of integrity and really want to help us learn more about this incredible world that we live in. And today we have two incredible guests from Australia, and they are joining us to tell us about the 10 terrains of consciousness. This is a model that really helps us understand the world. And the bigger vision here, everybody, is to really learn what we need to know to have greater compassion for each other and for ourselves. There really is a way for us to look at consciousness and to try to understand it in a way that can help us day by day make some specific choices to live in a better way and help others do the same. So today I want to introduce you to my first guest is Alan David Reed. Welcome, Alan. Lovely to have you here, co-founder, co-innovator for this wonderful 10 terrains.
Happy to be here.
And also to Tahnee Woolf. Now, Tanee is actually a modern Renaissance woman. She's a corporate lawyer, a scholar, screenwriter from Oxford, radio show host, personal development coach, a facilitator, Feldenkrais practitioner, spiritual channel. The list goes on, everybody. But what's so important here is that together, Alan and Tanee have actually built this incredible model that we're going to learn about today. And Tanee is also really trained in body work and also in this whole new way of mapping these 10 terrains together with Alan. Thank you so much, Tanee, for joining me today. Lovely to meet you and lovely to have you here.
So beautiful to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yes, so both of you have come up with something really quite interesting, and we had a little chat before this live to talk about really the purpose of it. And I loved what you said, is that it really is the end goal to help people learn how to be compassionate and why compassion is an end result, when you get involved with this model. So tell us a little bit about the 10 terrains of consciousness, and first of all, what made you build it?
Well, the model is really looking at a continuum between the understanding that the universe that we live inside of is an infinitely conscious universe. And there's a lot of evidence in quantum physics now with singularity and other things that are showing that we are actually one connected consciousness. And from that point, there's degrees of separation or filters that are on top of that have you be more separated in your perceptions. So these are 10 degrees of separation, 10 different perceptions of this consciousness, this conscious universe that we live inside of. And they're also like glasses that you would, be viewing it, the world through different colored glasses that give rise to your beliefs, your values, and generally how you relate to life.
Yeah, I mean, another way to explain it is you could think of these as 10 different stages in the human journey of evolution. And some people may go through several of these in their lifetime. Some people may spend their whole lifetime at one terrain. But each terrain really is very different. It's almost like you're in a parallel universe. You see the world very differently from people at the other terrains. As Alan said, it's as if you're wearing a pair of purple glasses and they're wearing a pair of red glasses, and you're just seeing everything through a completely different lens. And so that gives rise to so many conflicts in our world, so many misunderstandings, so many times when we feel people don't get us or they're questioning our life choices. And so when we talked about compassion at the start of this chat, we're really saying that when you can understand where someone else is coming from in their own evolutionary journey, and maybe they're at a different point than you're at, and that's okay, you can start to have a lot more compassion for them, why they're making the choices they're making, and stop trying to get them to change and actually have a conversation and really hear each other and understand where each other's coming from and what each other needs in order to feel safe. So that's one of the things that this model can really help with interpersonal relationships. It can also help us understanding ourselves. But in terms of what you've asked us about compassion, that's really what we're talking about.
Yeah, and it's a really important tool that then helps us actually navigate what is so difficult for most of us, this whole invisible realm of the world, the universe, the way we think. And what I liked so much about it was the way that you address what we call, I think you might agree with the word, even the bias that we have. You know, we're so prejudiced, we think in very specific ways, and we stop ourselves from going far enough to really empathically understand people because we prefer our own ideas. And it sounds like you have a way, you've built a system to help people really unlock that. And I love that about it. So I wanted to know a little bit more about the two of you, if you would mind sharing, maybe disclosing a little bit. What do you feel was one of the biggest breakthroughs that you each had in developing this model, and what in your own personal self, perhaps can you share with us, that you feel comfortable to share with us, you found it really helped you turn around?
Well, for me personally, I have looked at many systems on this planet. Wasn't really seeing something that brought an awareness forward this simply. I would say this is sort of the Occam's razor of consciousness underneath many models and tool sets that are out there. So with that idea in mind, we're really dealing with parallel universes here, and each of these universes has a language that you speak through. And so that's where people are acting differently at each of these terrains because of their perceptions and their differences in seeing the world.
And it's definitely had a huge impact on both of us personally. I mean, we actually started out as a romantic relationship, and over the course of working on this, that changed, and we just became colleagues a number of years ago. And one of the reasons we were able to make that shift is because of the terrain of consciousness that we're coming from, and really we are here in service to this work. And any human stuff that's in the way, we need to clear and get out of the way so we can always stay in our center and stay coming from a place of love. And I suspect that if I had been in that situation, say 15 years earlier, when I was at a different terrain of consciousness in my life, I would not have been able to do that, because I would have been so triggered by the human interpersonal stuff. I wouldn't have been able to stay in a place where I could bring this information through. And I'd say that it's true about both of us. And in terms of personal stuff it's helped us with, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but it's helped me a lot with understanding my friends and my family. And in my family, I grew up in a family where everyone was at a very different terrain of consciousness, as well as having different personality types and different psychological things going on. But the actual terrain of consciousness my parents were at, my sister was at, was so different from each other. I could never understand what was going on, what was underneath the conflicts. And I spent years studying personality types and Enneagram and everything, attachment styles, and all the human sort of higher level stuff, and that helped to a great degree. But when I came to understand the terrains, and I could see that my father and my mother were at a different terrain, and my sister was at a different terrain, and I was at a different terrain, everything started to make sense for me, and I was able to get along with them better and have much less conflict.
And I, for myself, I'm looking at macro systems, political systems, economic systems globally. So what we have here is each person has a terrain, but because we're in a fractal universe, groups of people have a prevailing terrain, nations have a terrain. And so with the understanding of this terrain model, I can very clearly see the conflicts happening between different countries, different groups within the country. It becomes, I've at this point not seen anything that can explain things more quickly and simply than this model.
And I have to say, watching Alan over the years as he came to understand this, he, in the early days I knew him, was very agitated about what was happening in the world and different political things, and very angry about it. And as he came to understand the different terrains that were playing out, he had a lot more peace of mind. And we found this with a lot of people who've studied our work who are more politically minded, like Alan. I'm more interpersonally focused, but if they're more politically focused, they tend to find that this model helps them to understand the world, so that if they're an activist, they can come to their activism from a place of empowerment rather than a place of reaction and fear and anger. And it's actually a much more powerful place to come from when you come from understanding.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it's helping us understand the complexity of society, and also the whole way that we integrate in society and how we don't integrate, and the reasons why. And I think this is what's really needed at this time, especially as we sit in a world with so much uncertainty nowadays. And I would even add to that agitation about the uncertainty of our future. We definitely do need to look more deeply at ways to feel safe and secure, even when things outside there don't necessarily match up with our beliefs or our understanding. And if we can have a tool that helps us do that, I think it can be amazing. So, David, you sound like a really deeply studied Alan David. My apology. I like the connection of those two names. You sound like somebody that has quite a deep knowledge of the cosmos. You talk about being a political person, or at least Tanee called you that, and that it gave you a lot of illumination, a lot of information about how it all fits together, and that it's a very simple tool that helps explain that complexity. Tell us a little bit about your background and what actually led you to wanting to simplify the way that you can grasp the world into this model.
Well, my journey really began as a child in the forest of Washington State in the US. And I found that I was very connected to nature and got moved from that location to the city where there was no more trees and there was no connection. And so I really felt my journey in this life was to integrate and reconnect civilization and nature, because I felt we'd really lost our way in a lot of ways. And in the pursuit of that, I have studied all of the sciences, all of the religions, all of the mystery schools and esoteric societies I could find. I've literally just tried to take in as much as I could of every possible arena in order to get what was going to be necessary for us to come together. And in that journey, I've worked with many teachers and very, very accomplished people, looked at lots of models. But what this brought forward to me in the process of evolving things was the clarity that just made it just very simple. Because if you think of the idea of snowflakes, they're all unique, but they come from one simple principle of water, H2O. Well, in the sense, the 10 terrains, it's a map, it's a simple set of archetypes and principles. But when you combine all of that, you can literally create the complexity of the whole of this planet.
And I just wanted to say something about what you just mentioned before, which was a really powerful statement where you talked about how this can help with our integration in society. Because one of the things we've had come back to us from people who've done our quiz, because we have a quiz that people can do, it's on our website, 10terrains.com. People can do that and find out which terrain they're at this point in their journey. And sometimes it's not the same terrain that the mainstream society is at, or it's not the same terrain of the city that they're living in, or the family that they're living in, or the culture that they're living in. And this can give rise to so much stress and angst for people. It's like their belief systems and choices and actions are not aligning with everybody else's because they're actually at a different terrain from the majority of people around them. And to understand that can just bring such a relief and a peace of mind to know I'm not crazy. The way I see the world is actually really valid. And there's many other people around the world who share it. They're just maybe not where I live. I maybe not be surrounded by them, but sometimes it can help you to know that you can find those people who are at the same terrain as you, and to understand why it is that you're finding it so hard to resonate with the current culture, which for some people is a big challenge. Not for everybody. Some people are at the same terrain as the mainstream culture or the current culture, but not everyone is. So this can really be helpful for people.
And it sounds also that it has a way of really helping us go a little bit beyond personality, or a little bit beyond what you mentioned before, so the Enneagram. Can you help me tonight understand the distinction? How do the different terrains help us understand ourselves different to those models? Or
yeah, those systems are all brilliant, and I've studied all of them and I've used them. I'm like, oh, you're an ENTJ. No, like I really get it and I love it. But that is really like the personality, the physical build, your blood type, your star sign, all of that is what you came in with at birth, and you're going to have that until you die. You know, I'm going to be ENFP, I'm going to be a broad-shouldered blonde with green eyes, unless I dye my hair, but my natural color is always going to be blonde. And I'm going to be a 3 Enneagram. Nothing in my life is going to change that. But your terrain is the stage you're at in your journey. It's more akin to your age. So I could be an ENFP at 12 years old or an ENFP at 14 years old. I'm still an ENFP, but I'm going to act very differently. This is the same with your terrain of consciousness. You're at a particular terrain at this point. Maybe you've been there for 10, 20, 30 years, or maybe you've been there your whole life. And you're expressing your personality through the lens of that terrain. If you were to have a terrain shift to the next terrain, you would be showing up in the world as a very different expression of that star sign or that personality or that kind of person, because it's just a different stage in your journey, but you're still you're just embodying it differently.
Got it. Ellen, David, tell us, what do you think is the difference between the hierarchy type arrangements that many of these models have sometimes, like just to quote one simple one, like Abraham Maslow's pyramid, you could see that it's sort of escalated. And its pyramid version, it has a hierarchy. It sounds like this one doesn't. It's much more accepting of people wherever they find themselves. Is that right? Can you help me understand that?
Yes, it's holarchic or holographic more in its construction, and it's really not looking at levels or hierarchy. It's really looking at expansions of perception. And what that really means to say is I should probably make the point that we're living in a universe that's a self-healing system, and we are all healing back to our unity within ourselves. What's holding us apart from that is a bundle of electrical charge, basically charge force that keeps us, like high pressure keeps rain away from the coast. It's keeping us away from that unity that we always have been at our core. And so what we're looking at here is a distinction between where someone's at and where they're potentially going as they do their work and heal themselves.
And it's really important, this question you've asked, because it's important to understand that this is not about levels. It's not better to be at one terrain or at another terrain. It's just a different perception, and it's really important to understand that. For example, like if you were in a spaceship, and you were on the ground, you could just see a few trees in front of you, and then the spaceship lifted up, and now I could see over the trees to the lake behind the trees, and then it lifted up, and now I could see like the whole country, and then it lifted up into outer space, and now I could see that there's not even borders, and it's a round globe. They're just different perceptions, but it's not that it's better to be at 30,000 feet or better to be at 10,000 feet. They just got a different view, and there's a different reason why you might choose to be there. So if you think of it as a spiritual model that you have incarnated at this point in your life, into this lifetime, for the experiences you're here to have and for the lessons you're here to learn and for the gifts you're here to give the world, there's a reason why you've chosen to come in at this particular terrain, which has this particular perception, these particular lessons to learn, these particular gifts to give. It's a different classroom to play in and learn in than you might have chosen, but there's a reason why you've chosen it. So we're always looking at the bigger picture when we're talking about this stuff.
I wanted to ask you as well, Tanee, if you can tell us a little bit about the most popular terrains. I know you said that you have a quiz, and we'll give everybody that information at the end to actually go off and get their own little evaluation. They can actually get answers by just doing the quiz. It's such a great thing that you built that. So if somebody was to do the test and they were to be coming up as, let's say, one of the most common terrains, what would that be?
The most common ones at this point in human history really are square and diamond, but there's still a fairly large group at pyramid and circle. So you can see, those of you who are watching this on video, not audio, you can see these symbols above me and above Alan. These are actually the icons that symbolize the 10 terrains of consciousness. And we've chosen these icons for very specific reasons, because they tell the story of human evolution in a visual way. And so at the moment, at this particular point in history, the largest group is actually at diamond, the reflection-based terrain, but there's also still a very large number of people at square. So most people but often people who are drawn to our quiz are actually usually at the point of sort of circle, the connection-based terrain, moving to spiral, the coherence-based terrain, because it doesn't tend to be so many mainstream people who do our quiz. But if everybody in the world was to do it, the majority of people would come out of the order-based terrain square or the reflection-based terrain diamond. And I can tell you a little bit about those two terrains just so you know what I'm talking about. The order-based terrain square is a terrain where someone has made the choice to participate in a society. So the previous terrain pyramid is very much every man for himself, whoever can amass the most power and wealth to dominate over other people. It's a terrain of ego and self-interest. But at square, the order-based terrain, someone has chosen to be part of a society, part of a civilization, to abide by the laws of that society, to put their own interest aside, to be part of a collective and to follow the laws. And they tend to believe in institutions and the consensus reality. It's what we'd call the mainstream. And the terrain after that, if someone was to shift to diamond, the reflection-based terrain, now they're really coming from a place of, I'm a unique individual and I decide who I am. I'm not just going to fit into the square of the machine. I'm going to have my own brand and my own company, and I'm going to innovate and I'm going to create stuff. And it's so much about unique expression and gender fluidity and innovation and the internet, everybody having an opinion. All the things we're seeing in our culture at the moment have come out of the fact that as a collective, our prevailing terrain is at diamond. So you'll get a lot of people coming out at square or at diamond, but there are 10 terrains, and there are a lot of people still at pyramid, and there's a lot of people at the one after it, the connection-based terrain circle.
I can do this over the thing. It's kind of it's a bell curve, basically. It's very small percentages at the ends, but the majority somewhat in the middle.
Got it. Very interesting. And I also think it's great that it replicates what we already see and know about these kinds of bell curves in so many different ways, but we have a new way to understand what that level of perception is. And my big question to both of you, and I'd like to hear what you both think about it, it's a little bit of a trick question, but let's hope it's not too much of a trick for you to answer, is what do you think is the biggest lie people are living with or believing in the world right now, and what is the truth? Alan, would you like to go first?
Biggest lie. Well, I would say the biggest lie is that we are what we see in the mirror. What we see is what we get. What the big lie is that we don't see the invisible that makes the visible up. We are actually a bundle of energy, and if you really want to get deep into the physics of it, we're not even here, and matter's not even here. If you take it down small enough, there's not even particles here. It's a hologram. It's a waveform. It's information. So what does that leave us with? Well, we're really looking at this idea that we're in this Maya, as the mysteries would call it. We're in this illusion of physicality, but that actually is a trick of the senses. And I can give you a quick example of that. You take your eye, looks at something, and it's basically upside down by the way the senses take everything in. It's the brain that turns everything right the other way around. So there's an interpretation that's going on, and that interpretation leads to bias and leads to misunderstanding. And so what the senses and what a lot of scientists, because they're caught up in the sensory, they've got the data, but then they're perceiving it from an upside down perspective. And what we're doing here with the 10 terrains is really taking what the mystics have been saying, what the latest in the sciences are showing us at the cutting edges, and reconciling them to say, hey, this is really how things are if you were to look at the data in a correct relationship.
Yeah, I like that answer. That's a really nice answer. So
I would say
it's upside down, actually, kind of in summation. Tell us, Tanee, what's your response on that?
Well, I would say it depends on what terrain you're at, because I'm here to talk about the terrains. And Alan's answer is a brilliant example of how someone would answer that question if they were at the fractal-based terrain toroid or the unity-based terrain infinity. Because at that place where someone's at that point in their journey, they will see that the biggest lie is that, we actually are all one, and this whole hologram is an illusion. When someone's at toroid or infinity, they're going to really feel the truth of that. That's not just a concept to them. Like, they're living that. They feel the truth that this is just a hologram. I'm winking in and out of existence. Nothing is real. I'm just here as a witness. I'm just an antenna for consciousness. I'm coming through in divine service. That's the lie that they will see. But people at a previous terrain won't see that. Everyone's going to have a different big lie depending on where they're at in their journey. So if someone's at circle, their big lie might be, we are all connected to the web of life. Why do people not realize that? Why are they not making choices for the longevity of all the unborn children and the respect of the ancestors and the protection of the sacredness of the earth? That's the lie that someone at circle is going to cry about and want to talk to you about and convince you about. The lie of someone at diamond, well, there'll be many different lies here, because this is a very mental terrain where everybody's got different opinions and ideas. But a lot of people at diamond might be railing about the lies that are being told by authority and by the powers that be and by the mainstream. And they'll be agitating to try and shift that and bring truth and bring light to these ancient secrets and show what's really happening and make their own YouTube videos about what's happening. So it can be that kind of lie. So every terrain is going to answer this question differently. So I'm always wanting to bring it back to that, because I don't want to make it about my personal opinion. I really want to really illustrate how even a question like this could be answered so differently.
Yeah, it definitely reveals that when you think about how these different mind states and different levels of consciousness in each person is looking at truth. And I remember being kind of shocked one day in a landmark forum training years back, where they said that according to the training content of that particular day, which was really based on ontology, Socratic style of being, that there is no truth. And I was shocked. I was, dismayed, thinking this is an injustice to all the years of study and psychology and all the different philosophy and, amazing things that have been written, because there must be something that we all agree on. And this is the greatest conundrum of it all, isn't it, really, that I think both of you answer it so beautifully from different vantage points, how important it is to really get to grip with your own level of truth, your own way of understanding the world around you, but then also make enough space for others to have their version. And so we hit on that really nicely here at the end of our talk together. And perhaps this is something that we can all agree on then, is that we all have a version of our own personal truth, and that we also do need models, systems, formulas, all kinds of things that we have the privilege to have people like you design for us to help us navigate our truth and how it fits in with the rest of the world. So thank you so much for bringing all this information to our listeners. Anybody out there who's interested to do the quiz, you're going to get the following information now from the innovators themselves, and then you'll also get that information on this video, so you can go and check that out underneath here. And then also give us your website if you can, the 10 Terrains of Consciousness quiz. Tahnee, where do they get that?
Yes, that's it.
You go.
10terrains.com, and I'll spell it TENTERRAINS.com. There's links to the quiz. There's links to get the book, Introducing the 10 Terrains of Consciousness, which the quiz will give you a very good snapshot of where you're at in this journey, and the report that you can get with that will give you a sense of your point in your evolution.
And also the challenges you're facing there, and the lessons you're there to learn, and the gifts of where you're at. The report's quite detailed, it's about 40 pages, and it will tell you a lot.
But the book will give you a general overview of the model itself. And of course, on the website, we've got navigation links to our YouTube channel, where we've just put up a COVID series, and it shows the different responses from each of the terrains and what their needs for safety and how they're reacting. We've got a wealth of videos that are coming online here. And of course, we're on social media. So we're actively growing this content and getting it out to the world.
And then in the new year, we're going to be offering a course where people can learn more about this and go into it much more deeply and start to apply it to their lives. And maybe even people who are coaches or trainers or healers or counselors can start to use this with their clients. So that's what we're going to be doing next year. It's pretty exciting.
Fantastic. So everybody, I've been looking at this Amazon page with the books that you've just heard Alan and Tahnee talk about, and it's really interesting information. So maybe you can go ahead and read that, check out the book there, and also look for their website. It's correct to say that it's www.10terrains.com, correct?
Yep, TEN.
Yes.
TERRAINS.com. And you know that you can get the quiz there, you can find out more about the book, or you can find it on Amazon as well. Maybe it's a nice gift for somebody that really wants to start their journey in personal growth, or is into personal growth already. And I thank you again, Tahnee and Alan, for making that available to people and actually spending the time really working out how you're going to map everybody's consciousness. That's a very big project.
It was
we're busy with.
a huge project.
We didn't do it intentionally, actually. It just came out of our conversations. And one day we thought we really should write this stuff down.
But to map consciousness is probably one of the single most difficult challenges you could face.
I was just about to say, it's a really sophisticated thing to be able to simplify such a vast topic. So congratulations to it, because I know being able to hone down and explain all of that in a model that looks, relatively simple to understand, especially even as you see it up there, is a really great feat. So well done. And to everybody who wants more information, you can go and find Tahnee Woolf on her LinkedIn profile, and you can also connect, I'm sure, with Alan on that website as well, and maybe you can ask more questions there and follow what they're doing, because it looks like they're going to be talking to some global leaders, thought leaders, about their terrains, and that would be a very interesting conversation. And for those of you interested in more information about that COVID-related response that people are having, that would be something very interesting to follow up on as well. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.